Within the bath. Within the bath. Every bath begins with a vision, where ideas and strategies define directions, from the depth of strategic thinking to ever-evolving dynamics of the world. A program broadcast in English brings insight into the journeys that shape the course of individuals, institutions, and nations. Prepared and presented by Mohra bint Zubair Al Zubair and audio director, Warrant Officer Ward bin Salim Al Rawahi.
Assalamu alaikum, our dear friends. Welcome back to Within the Path. In the last two episodes, we explored information and intelligence, how information comes to us, how and what we take from it, and when it begins to turn into intelligence. Today, we move even closer to the source. We focus on the human mind that performs that work, the place where perception, experience, emotion, and judgment come together before analysis even begins. This episode draws from the psychology of intelligence analysis by Richard J. Hoyer Jr., which we briefly touched on last episode. One of Hoyer's key insights is that analysis begins with perception. We approach information with expectations already in place. These expectations act like lenses, shaping what stands out, what feels important, and what fades into the background. Training, experience, memory, and culture all shape these lenses over time. Information does not arrive as a neutral stream. It meets a mind that is already organized in particular ways. This matters deeply in intelligence work, which operates under uncertainty, incomplete information, and pressure for early judgment. And in these conditions, perception becomes especially powerful, because when things are unclear, the mind automatically fills in gaps. When it comes to analytical thinking, Hoyer uses analogies to explain that skills like riding a bike or running cannot be learned from description alone. He describes analytical thinking as a skill, much like driving or carpentry, something that can be taught, learned, and improved with practice. Analysts do not learn simply by being told how to analyze. They learn by doing, through repeated engagement and experience. Most people reach an acceptable level of analytical performance through education alone, but with sustained effort and reflection, analysts can develop a level of excellence that goes beyond what comes naturally. Analysis works in much the same way. Reading builds a sense of familiarity with ideas and language. Frameworks help organize information and compare possibilities. Over time, experience adds another layer. Judgment develops through being in real situations, looking back at how they were formed and learning from how they're held up. One way to read Hoyer's work is that before analysis moves outward, it starts inwards. So when we take the time to understand ourselves, we usually find that understanding others becomes easier as well. As self-awareness grows, our perspective naturally widens. We become more measured in how we process situations, and this state shapes how we perceive what's happening around us. This kind of inner work matters most when pressure is high and when decisions carry real consequences. Another thing becomes increasingly clear. Emotions are part of how we process information. They signal what feels important, what is urgent, and what draws our attention first. Certain interpretations feel more convincing, others create discomfort, and all of this happens before formal reasoning fully settles in. So when we become aware of these responses, we create space to pause, to reflect, and to reassess. Over time, this awareness supports a more balanced and considered way of creating or forming a judgment, and it becomes part of how analytical thinking matures. Our dear friends, stay tuned, and we'll be back right after this break. Our dear friends, welcome back. Going back to the subject of intelligence work, another demanding aspect of it that Hoyer highlights is perspective shifting. One of the most difficult mental tasks is to take a familiar body of information and reorganize it so it can be seen from a different angle. This becomes especially clear in the context of international interactions, which form a core part of intelligence work. Analysts are often asked to understand situations involving states, institutions, and actors with very different histories, interests, and worldviews. Making sense of these interactions requires seeing the situation as it appears to each side involved. Analysts move back and forth between perspectives, holding multiple interpretations at once, and resisting the urge to collapse them into a single narrative too early. Each actor interprets events through its own priorities, fears, and expectations. The analyst's role is to understand those interpretations without becoming attached to any single one. This requires psychological flexibility, comfort with uncertainty, and discipline of mind. Self-awareness supports this process, because when a person understands their own lens, they can step outside of it more easily. Hoyer places strong emphasis on assumptions because they sit quietly beneath how we interpret situations and how we anticipate what might come next. They help analysts move forward, but at the same time, they influence how conclusions take shape. Analytical strength grows when these assumptions are brought into view, talked through, and revisited as situations evolve. This is where reflection really comes in. Looking back at how judgments were formed, allow experience to turn into learning. Over time, that learning supports better judgment. Experience on its own does not automatically lead to improvement per se. It is the habit of reflecting on experience that gradually sharpens understanding. So what makes these ideas powerful is that they reach far beyond intelligence work. Any field that depends on interpretation benefits from awareness of perception, emotion, and assumption. Wherever decisions shape outcomes, understanding how the human mind works helps guide the steps that follow. Hoyer also touches on failure, and he frames it in a way that is important to reflect on. He notes that some of the strongest analysts develop their skills after experiencing analytical failure early in their careers. That failure motivated them to become more aware of how they think and to sharpen their thinking process. This is a reminder that setbacks and failures are not the end. They are lessons. They are teachers, and they motivate us to grow. And when we are willing to face them honestly, they become a form of success in themselves. And this process is humbling But it is also what shapes character. It shapes how we think, how we respond, and how we stand back up, often stronger than before. Until next time, this is Mohra Al Zubair from Within the Path.
Within the Path. Every path begins with a vision, where ideas and strategies define directions, from the depth of strategic thinking to ever-evolving dynamics of the world. A program broadcast in English brings insight into the journeys that shape the course of individuals, institutions, and nations. Prepared and presented by Mohra bint Zubair Al Zubair and audio director, Warrant Officer Ward bin Salim Al Rawahi.